Between your first bite and your last breath of the day lies a metabolic journey most of us will never witness until now. When you place that first morsel of food into your mouth after 23 hours of fasting, something remarkable happens that most of us never stop to consider. Your tongue, that muscular sentinel, immediately begins its chemical analysis, sending urgent messages to your brain about sweetness, saltiness, the presence of proteins and fats. But this is merely the opening act of a symphony that will play out across every organ system in your body over the next 4 hours. As you chew and swallow, your stomach, which has been quietly resting in a state of gentle contraction, suddenly awakens with purpose. The cells lining your gastric walls begin secreting hydrochloric acid with an intensity that would dissolve metal. Yet your body has learned over millions of years to protect itself from this necessary violence. Enzymes cascade into the mixture, pepsin beginning its work of dismantling proteins into their component parts, breaking bonds that have held together the structure of whatever life you have chosen to consume. Your stomach churns with muscular contractions that are far more powerful than you consciously perceive, turning solid matter into a semi-liquid paste that will soon pass into your small intestine. Within minutes, your pancreas receives its signal. This often overlooked organ, nestled behind your stomach, responds by releasing insulin into your bloodstream like a key being distributed to every cell in your body. Insulin is perhaps the most misunderstood hormone in human physiology, painted as villain in some narratives and hero in others, when in truth it is simply a messenger, doing what it has evolved to do, telling your cells that energy has arrived, and they should open their doors to receive it. Your muscle cells, your fat cells, your liver cells all begin pulling glucose from your blood, and your blood sugar, which rose sharply in those first 30 minutes, begins its descent back toward baseline. But here is where eating once daily reveals its unique character. Your body, having fasted for nearly a full day, responds to this incoming nutrition with a sensitivity that has been sharpened by absence. Your cells are more receptive to insulin's message because they have not been constantly bombarded with it. The glucose enters cells more efficiently, requiring less insulin to do the same work. Your liver, which has spent hours releasing stored glucose to maintain your blood sugar during the fast, now switches roles entirely, beginning to store incoming glucose as glycogen, packing away energy for future need. Your digestive system, so often chronically activated in modern life, now works with an intensity that comes from genuine rest. The migrating motor complex, a wave of electrical activity that sweeps through your intestines during fasting to clean out debris, has just completed its housekeeping work. Now your small intestine dedicates its full attention to absorption, its millions of finger-like villi reaching out to capture nutrients, pulling amino acids and fatty acids and vitamins across the intestinal barrier into your bloodstream. Your body is not just receiving food, it is transforming matter into life. And in these first 4 hours, that transformation occurs with a focused efficiency that reveals what digestion looks like when it is not perpetually interrupted by the next meal. For hours after your meal, your body stands at a threshold that most modern humans cross multiple times each day, without ever truly experiencing what lies beyond it. Your stomach is largely emptied, sending its final contributions into your small intestine, and the dramatic spike of insulin that accompanied your first bites has begun to recede like a tide pulling away from shore. This is the moment when your metabolism must make a decision, and that decision reveals something profound about the difference between eating once and eating throughout the day. Your blood sugar, which climbed and then fell in those initial hours, now seeks equilibrium. But equilibrium in a body that eats once daily looks different from equilibrium in a body that snacks every few hours. Your pancreas, no longer flooded with demands for insulin, begins to release its counterpart hormone, glucagon, which carries the opposite message to your cells. Where insulin said store and build, glucagon whispers release and mobilize. Your liver listens first, beginning to break down the glycogen it so carefully constructed during digestion, releasing glucose back into your bloodstream in measured amounts to keep your brain and red blood cells functioning optimally. This is where many people eating once a day report their first encounter with hunger. But hunger itself is far more complex than the simple sensation we often reduce it to. Ghrelin, often called the hunger hormone, rises in your stomach and sends signals to your hypothalamus, that ancient region of your brain responsible for so many survival functions. Yet here is what fascinates researchers. Ghrelin levels in people who eat once daily begin to follow a pattern, rising and falling at predictable times, almost as though your body learns when to expect food and when to stop asking for it. Your stomach is not merely empty, it is communicating with your entire endocrine system, participating in a conversation about energy availability that extends far beyond the immediate sensation of wanting to eat. Your body during these hours exists in a state that could be called metabolic flexibility, though that term barely captures the elegance of what is occurring. You are transitioning from relying on the food you just consumed to relying on the reserves you have stored. And this transition happens with remarkable smoothness when your body has practiced making it. Your mitochondria, those tiny powerhouses within each cell, begin shifting their fuel preferences, becoming more efficient at extracting energy from fat, even as glucose remains available. Your muscles tap into their own glycogen stores for immediate needs, while sparing blood glucose for your brain. There is a certain metabolic wisdom in this crossroads period, a built-in intelligence that our ancestors relied upon daily. They did not have the luxury of constant food availability, and so our bodies evolved to handle these transitions with grace. The slight dip in energy some people feel around hour 6 or 7 is not weakness but adaptation, your body recalibrating its systems, finding its rhythm between fed and fasted states, preparing for the deeper transformations that await in the hours stretching ahead into evening and night, when cellular repair begins to take precedence over digestion. 8 hours beyond your meal, something shifts at the cellular level that remains invisible to your conscious awareness, yet profoundly affects your long-term health. Your digestive system, having completed the intensive work of breaking down and absorbing nutrients, finally grows quiet. This silence is not emptiness, but opportunity, because digestion is extraordinarily energy expensive, demanding roughly 10% of your daily energy expenditure when active. Now that energy becomes available for other purposes that get neglected when your body never stops processing food. Autophagy, a word derived from Greek meaning self-eating, begins to accelerate within your cells. This is not the dramatic cellular destruction it might sound like, but rather an elegant recycling program that has existed in living organisms for billions of years. Your cells begin identifying damaged proteins, misfolded molecular structures, worn-out organelles, even invading bacteria, tagging them for destruction and renewal. Lysosomes, specialized compartments within each cell, engulf these tagged materials and break them down into component parts that can be reused to build new, functional cellular machinery. You are quite literally rebuilding yourself from the inside out. The inflammation markers circulating in your bloodstream begin to decline during these hours. Chronic low-grade inflammation, that persistent activation of your immune system that contributes to aging and disease, diminishes when your body is not constantly responding to incoming food. Your immune cells, no longer preoccupied with monitoring nutrients entering through your gut barrier, redirect their attention to patrolling for actual threats, cleaning up senescent cells, supporting tissue repair. Your brain, despite common assumptions that it needs constant glucose, begins operating with enhanced efficiency during this period. Metabolic byproducts from fat burning, including ketone bodies that are just beginning to appear in measurable quantities, cross the blood-brain barrier and provide an alternative fuel source that many researchers believe offers neuroprotective benefits, potentially supporting cognitive function and cellular resilience in ways that pure glucose metabolism cannot fully replicate. 16 hours into your fast, your body crosses into metabolic territory that feels almost foreign to most people living in modern, food-abundant societies. Your liver's glycogen stores, those carefully maintained reserves of glucose, have diminished to levels that trigger a fundamental shift in how your body powers itself. This is not starvation, despite what our food every few hours culture might suggest, but rather a return to a metabolic state your ancestors knew intimately, a state your genes still remember, even if your conscious mind does not. Your liver begins ramping up ketogenesis, the process of converting fatty acids into ketone bodies, acetoacid and acetone. These molecules, small enough to cross the blood-brain barrier, begin circulating through your bloodstream in increasing concentrations, offering your brain and other organs an alternative fuel source that burns cleaner than glucose, producing fewer metabolic waste products called reactive oxygen species. Many people report a shift in mental clarity during these hours, a sharpening of focus that may relate to this transition. Though the subjective experience varies widely among individuals, your growth hormone levels, which have been gradually rising throughout your fast, now reach peaks that can be several times higher than baseline. This surge serves multiple purposes: preserving muscle mass during the fast, promoting fat breakdown, supporting cellular repair processes. Growth hormone works in concert with decreased insulin levels to mobilize fat stores, particularly the visceral fat surrounding your organs that poses the greatest metabolic risk. Your adipose tissue, often thought of as passive storage, reveals itself as an active endocrine organ, releasing fatty acids into your bloodstream where they traveled to your liver for conversion into usable energy. The metabolic flexibility you began developing in those earlier transition hours now expresses itself fully. Your body moves seamlessly between fuel sources, no longer dependent on constant external feeding, accessing energy reserves with an efficiency that modern 3 meals eating patterns rarely allow your metabolism to demonstrate or develop. As you approach the 20th hour of fasting, your body begins orchestrating preparations for the renewal that will come with your next meal. Yet it does so without desperation, without the blood sugar crashes that plague those who eat. Frequently throughout the day, your hormonal landscape has been reshaped by these long hours of nutritional absence, creating patterns that differ fundamentally. From the hormonal chaos of constant grazing, ghrelin, that hunger signal from your stomach, follows a curious trajectory in people adapted to eating once daily. Rather than climbing relentlessly as the fast extends, it often peaks and then subsides, as though your body recognizes the pattern and stops sending urgent distress signals. Your brain has learned that food will come, that this is not famine but rhythm, and this learning expresses itself in the gradual habituation of hunger signals. Meanwhile, leptin, the hormone that signals satiety and energy sufficiency, maintains levels that reflect your overall energy stores rather than your immediate fed state, helping your brain assess true nutritional status rather than reacting to every fluctuation. Your cells have spent these fasting hours becoming sensitive to insulin once again. The insulin receptors on your muscle and fat cells, no longer chronically stimulated, reset themselves, becoming more responsive to smaller amounts of the hormone. This restoration of insulin sensitivity represents perhaps one of the most significant metabolic advantages of extended daily fasting, creating a body that can handle incoming nutrients with exceptional efficiency when you do eat. Your circadian biology aligns itself with this feeding pattern, your body's internal clock learning to anticipate the daily cycle of feast and fast. Gene expression shifts throughout these 24 hours, different sets of genes activating during fasting than during feeding, creating a rhythmic dance of cellular activity that may support longevity pathways and metabolic health in ways that continuous feeding never allows your biology to fully express or experience.